Yeah, we were doing success stories of 7-Eleven. So we'll continue that video. It was not completed. So I'll just share the screen.
Of in-store sales in 2019.
It is audible.
Yes, sir.
Prepared food, including hot coffee, accounted for 25.4%. Packaged beverages like soda and energy drinks made up
Sir, it's echoing.
14.8%. Candy and salty snacks
It is echoing. Okay, I will have to use headphone.
were 10%. Beer was 7.4%. And
Now it is not echoing, no?
Yes, sir.
things like laundry detergent made up the remainder. At the start of the pandemic, 7-Eleven experienced a drop in pre-work visits.
Not echoing now.
Yes, sir. It's audible fine now.
With fewer people purchasing coffee and breakfast for the office. Instead, the retailer saw consumers buying items in bulk. In an email to CNBC, 7-Eleven said this increased the average cart size as people were stocking up and also purchasing things they may have typically bought at a grocery store from their local 7-Eleven. We found that people were more comfortable shopping at 7-Eleven stores than some big crowded big box store or shopping center. 7-Eleven Incorporated, which includes 12,000 stores in North America, had revenue from operations of $25 billion in fiscal year 2019, 67% more than.
So while many companies witnessed fall in the revenue during pandemic, these stores, because they are closer to, I mean, uh, there was a, you can say, besides their already success, I mean, success was already there, but after pandemic, because of their proximity to customers, as compared to the big supermarkets, which were mostly on the highways or in the suburban areas, the 7-Eleven was, even though there were small stores, people were going there more. So people started stocking more, and their revenue hence increased.
2015. Since the mid 2000s, the convenience store industry has seen a variety of new entrants into the space. In 2018, Amazon made its debut with the launch of its automated grocery store, Amazon Go. The store incorporates.
So this Amazon Go is a, we'll soon see in India as well. So where self checkout is the typical point in this. You'll hear about it more in the coming days.
The same technology used in self-driving cars and offers ready-to-eat meals as well as household essentials. As of January 2021, there were more than 24 Amazon Go locations across the U.S. Big box stores like Walmart and Home Depot have also tried to make inroads into the segment with varying degrees of success. While C-stores benefit from long hours and convenient locations, analysts say to attract a new generation of customers, retailers like 7-Eleven are adding healthier food options and a restaurant experience to their playbook.
Prior to COVID, we've seen a gradual increase over the years in food service, in prepared foods. You've seen stories about gourmet gas stations across the country. So there's definitely been a move for better prepared food.
So till now, what we have seen is how 7-Eleven has had the success, but now we see where they are going, how they are converting this success into even larger beneficial scenario. So that's what we are witnessing in the remaining part of the video. What are their future plans?
I've seen this with Wawa and Sheetz, 7-Eleven, where you can get something to eat right there. You could order from the gas pump, and like mini cafe where you can sit down on the inside as well. And if the state allows it, you can have a nice beer with your sandwich or your taco or whatever it may be. So they've really transformed themselves into more food offerings rather than.
So because I mean, of all the products, if you are going out, you would want to have something. I mean, that's a human nature, especially with the youngsters. So uh, they are getting more food offerings. Initially, only sandwiches or some few items. Now they are. You can consider they are running a small restaurant along with the convenience store.
Than just like convenience and store, just picking up milk and eggs and bread.
In September 2014, 7-Eleven partnered with celebrity fitness expert Tony Horton, creator of Beachbody P90X, to develop a line of healthy sandwiches, salads, wraps, and cold-pressed juices. And in March 2019, the company opened its first Evolution store concept in Dallas, Texas. The new format features made-to-order smoothies, baked in-store croissants, and an alcove dedicated to wine and craft beers. The store
So it actually indicates the offering of a larger product variety, as we have also seen in the earlier lectures that from mass production, the companies are moving towards more customized. So that was manufacturing. Now this is in services what we see. So even in services, we would like to have more offerings, product offerings.
store also incorporates a Laredo taco company taqueria. 7-Eleven bought the taqueria as part of the 1,000 store acquisition from Sunoco in 2018. 7-Eleven also upgraded its delivery app, started in 2017, offering customers.
So from simply being a brick and mortar convenience store, I think you understand brick and mortar. I mean the shops which you see around our houses. These are all where you actually physically go and bring the product. That is brick and mortar store. So besides brick and mortar store, they have also come into online services, which is like almost every company has done that. But the main advantage with 7-Eleven now is that it can become a market leader for the simple reason that it is closer to customers, and the more closer to customers you are, you can have shorter lead times and you can save a lot on the transportation. So for these people it is a big boon. उनको काफी फायदा है if they are going into online business.
Customers the option to have food, grocery items, or wine delivered and paid for in advance. As of January 2021, there were 5 Evolution stores in Dallas, Washington, D.C., San Diego, and Manhattan. The company plans to add 10 additional venues in 2021. And changing consumer behavior related to the pandemic has also had a big impact on the brand. During a January 12, 2021 third quarter earnings call, Ryushi Asaka, president of 7&i Holdings, said that while the coronavirus pandemic has caused a slowdown in foot traffic in 7-Eleven U.S. stores, consumer spending was up at least 20% from the year prior. Asaka said during the quarter, stores in the U.S. had seen a spike in the sale of frozen foods, alcoholic beverages, family-sized ice cream, and large beverages. In the 9 months ending September 30th, 2020, 7-Eleven Incorporated had operating income of $888 million.
So see, you can see here that in pandemic they have actually risen. Their revenue has risen.
6% increase from the year earlier.
When the pandemic's over, I don't think consumers are going to say, curbside was great, delivery was great, we're over it now. It's going to continue. So the good news is the value of convenience has never been higher. The bad news.
I mean, we can see in the change in all of us. We've been ordering more online. I can give my own example that almost every alternate day I used to go to a grocery store in the Malve Nagar and get things. But now that it's been 1.5 years and I think I have gone twice or thrice only in this 1.5 years to the grocery store. I think I'm purchasing most of the things online, and besides that, we have even inside the campus we've got vegetable shop and all. So the thing is, post pandemic, the supply chains have transformed a lot. People are now trying to get even closer to the customers. You can see over this is a parking lot of a shopping complex in a suburban area, and not in a civilian or area where there's a lot of people living. So if, empty parking lots means that people don't want to go to travel distance and get things. I mean, they may pay a bit higher for convenience.
News is it keeps on getting more difficult to execute because it keeps on advancing, and every other retailer is looking at convenience because, let's face it, no one wants to be the inconvenience store.
Okay, so with this, our 7-Eleven success story is completed. Now, there are many other stories we will be going through, but is it always success for 7-Eleven? Let's have a look at the case of Indonesia now. Same company. Why did it fail in Indonesia? So let's have a look at it now. Now this is on the contrast. So what are the supply chain implications of, I mean, why 7-Eleven was success, or by and large why it is successful? Because it is still located in those, I mean, I'm not sure about India yet, whether it will be successful or not, because even though density of the population is high, but we people still would like to go to assorted shops to purchase different things by and large. But if you look at the American culture or Western culture, where a lot of empty spaces are there, so they go to suburban areas to purchase on weekends and do their purchase in big shopping malls. While 7-Eleven gives more convenience, and that's why it has been more hit among Western countries. So now let's have a look. This thing could happen to Indians also in India also. If 7-Eleven comes to India, it could happen in the similar way in India as well. So let's have a look
More
at
than
it.
60,000 7-Elevens across the planet. But there
So 60,000 stores are there across the planet. Okay, 7-Eleven, and this is pretty much a current video only.
is one country where the convenience store chain flopped: Indonesia. In 2017,
Can you tell what is common between Indonesia and India? Anyone? Anyone? Yes. Okay. Meanwhile, you people can give attendance also. Okay, we will see that in the video.
the chain of mini markets closed all of its stores there. Here's why 7-Eleven failed in Indonesia. Let's go back to 2009, when 7-Eleven got its start in the country. 7-Eleven's Indonesian rollout was run by a local operator, PT Modern International. Contrary to its American counterpart that capitalized on to-go items and late-night munchies, 7-Eleven in Indonesia became a trendy hangout spot for locals.
So, rather than being a convenience store, it was more like a cafe, or you can say hangout store for the people of Indonesia. So, because they were offering wine and other, beer, and when people sit together and have some food and all. So it was more turning out to be more than a convenience store, food joint. Okay.
Offer traditional 7-Eleven items like Slurpees and snacks, but also fresh local food and alcohol.
7-Eleven was very popular with university students, really the 18 to 25 age range. It was a place for them to hang out at all hours of the day, all hours of the night. Before the alcohol ban that was imposed in 2015, this was a very popular spot to hang out, have a beer after class or after work, have free Wi-Fi, have a bite to eat.
As the business took off, Modern soon started to expand within the capital, Jakarta. It opened its 21st store by 2010, and it hit 100.
So it was doing well for 2 years, and by 2012, it had 100 stores. So by 2012, 100 stores are there. So you can see it was the curve was going up.
Locations in 2012. In 2014, the company hit peak sales of around 78 million with 190 stores. The future of 7-Eleven in Indonesia seemed promising. The stores remained crowded, but there was one problem. People weren't spending money.
Where actually there are some comments that there's a huge crowd in 7-Eleven, but they might just buy one drink.
So this is the problem there, where you are showcasing so many products. Okay, if you are having, but only 1 or 2 products are hit, or you can say 1 or 2 products are doing good, while your whole idea of convenience store is banking upon offering a lot of variety. So what are those products doing in the, like, you are left with a lot of inventory, then in that case, getting it, even though more people are coming and having a drink or two. It's just like in India, we have chai stalls where not probably 1 or 2 people are having tea, or even after having tea, they are just sitting. So from outside, it looks like it's a great place and a lot of people and a lot of crowd, but the sales is not there. Same thing happens with the shopping malls in India, where they get crowded a lot, but even not even 10%, or most of them would go and eat something there and come back. They would go to their old stores for purchasing clothes, and maybe rather compare the same thing. You go to shopping mall and see what is the price of this product over here and what am I getting online, and then you're going to add that product in your shopping cart and online, and then you're going to purchase from that. Okay, how many of you do that actually? Let me see how many of you are active, and how many of you do that? You go to shopping mall and okay, Shubhangi, Karvi. Okay, so many. So I think it is a common phenomena that most of us do that. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So most of us do that actually. We go to shopping mall and we browse things over there. So what are those guys getting? वहाँ पे जो shop खोल के बैठे हैं उनको क्या मिल रहा है? I mean, they're just getting footfalls and nothing else. So just increasing the footfall in your shop does not guarantee greater revenue. The same thing was happening with 7-Eleven. It got branded more as a hangout joint rather than a convenience store. Maybe that it's not changing the habits of the people over there.
Bread and sit for 3 hours.
The company also attributed its lack of sales to intense competition from existing and new competitors. By 2016, the number of retail outlets in Indonesia had grown from 12,000 to 40,000 in just.
So, although they started a movement, 7-Eleven, but soon local competitors pitched in, and more retail stores like 7-Eleven and like air-conditioned retail stores and all, which you already know, they started opening up.
Just under a decade, with mini markets being the sector's fastest growing segment. 2 of 7-Eleven's
So they're calling it
biggest
as mini
competitors-
market. They're not calling it as supermarket, but mini market.
were Indonesian convenience stores Indomaret and Alfamart. Both chains have a long history in the country and are top players in Indonesia's convenience store market. 7-Eleven had 190 stores in the country, but its competitor store count absolutely squashed that. As of 2017, there were more than 10,000 Alfamarts and roughly 15,000 Indomarets in Indonesia, giving Alfamart a 38% share of the market and Indomaret 47%. That was the year 7-Eleven closed all of its shops, but before that, it held just 0.7% of the market. Regulatory issues also posed a major problem for 7-Eleven.
So, in supply chain, another implication which comes for foreign players or global players or in global supply chain is the foreign policies and the exchange rates. We'll talk all about that as well.
2015, Indonesia banned the sale.
So there is a policy now. Since 7-Eleven was turning out to be a hangout store for the youngsters, mostly, as they said, that 18 to 25 people are hanging out there. So, and then in 2015, Indonesia banned the sale of alcoholic beverages in convenience stores and mini markets for whatever reason, right? It was banned. Now, because of that, the whole USP, I mean, for what the 7-Eleven is known, is lost.
Of alcoholic beverages in convenience stores and mini marts. After the alcohol ban took effect, 7-Eleven's net sales dropped by nearly 24% over the next year. Unlike 7-Eleven, its rivals Indomaret and Alfamart actually reported revenue gains that year. Alfamart and Indomaret were able to withstand the ban because they offered a wider range of products and services. 7-Eleven.
So why 7-Eleven was not offering wider range of products and services as compared to other markets? The concept is different. 7-Eleven it's like convenience store. We've got stationery shop in MNIT. So this stationery shop guys not only keep stationery, but like some toothpaste and hair oil and some things like which on daily use the students may need, and they don't want to go outside the campus. So it's like a convenience store for them. It's not something that where you get a lot of variety, but you can get one type of oil and one type of shampoo and one type of toothpaste only, on one brand of. So that's what like convenience store is like. It's not in size, it is smaller, while the mini markets are larger. So the 7-Eleven was never competing with mini markets till the time the regulation came that you can't sell liquor. So anyway, people had less motivation to go there. 7-Eleven.
Its geographic reach posed another big problem. The convenience store chain never managed to expand beyond Jakarta and its surrounding cities, but its rivals did.
They are located in Jakarta, whereas other mini market can expand outside Jakarta. One is, I think, the regulations for foreign ownerships or foreign franchise of convenience stores, because Indomaret and Alfamart and Indomaret basically is local brands, so they have less restriction in terms of expansion.
So I think you all know that Walmart was not allowed to open its convenience stores. How many of you know that? In India, it tried in 2018 to open its convenience stores, but it was not allowed. So it had to partner with Flipkart then. So how many of you know that? Raise your hand. So the thing is that Walmart, and then we have Reliance, Big Bazaar, that's Biani now sold it. Then we have D-Mart. So these are the convenience stores. They can be opened, but like Walmart can't be opened over here. You can't invest in the convenience store. So same thing happened in Indonesia also. Maybe Walmart has one superstore somewhere in I think Maharashtra or somewhere. Besides that, it can't go to the convenience store market or even a supermarket store. Hypermart, Hypermart you can open where distributors can come in.
To other cities, other regions.
Modern also cited Indonesia's economic slowdown as a reason for its diminishing revenue. The chain closed down 25 underperforming stores in 2016 to cut down operation losses, and Modern closed the remainder of its 7-Eleven stores in 2017. However, a spokesperson from 7-Eleven said, "Indonesia is an important country for us. This is not the end for 7-Eleven's business." The company is hoping to find a new partner to renew its efforts, and it has good reason to believe the right international partner will make all the difference. Take Japan. 7-Eleven entered the country in 1974. It partnered with Japanese chain Ito Yukado, forming York 7 Company to operate its.
So global companies generally do have to partner with other companies to expand their. I mean, if they have to go in a global scenario. It is generally considered to be much better because uh, for many reasons that they already know the culture, the government supports them, the people are favorable.
Stores. It was so successful that in 2005, it bought out the company. Seven & I Holdings
So 7-Eleven collaborated, I mean, had a venture with this company, and later on, after the success, it bought the complete company altogether.
became the global owner of the American chain. Today, there are more than 20,000 7-Elevens in Japan. The US has less than 9,000. So seeking a new international partner may be the key to its success.
Okay, so yeah, so this was a success story of 7-Eleven, and failure of 7-Eleven in Indonesia also we've seen. Okay, so now just like 7-Eleven, Walmart is also a very successful supermarket store. Why in supply chain management these talking about the supermarkets is so important is they totally bank upon the basic principles of supply chain, which is coordination and a lot of inventory and a lot of variety. And so the core concepts of supply chain are well understood when we talk about supermarkets. As we have seen also the lean manufacturing, or you can say the difference between Toyota and Ford was that Toyota was more towards the supermarket concept. They were working on the supermarket concept just in time and all, while Ford was working on the mass production. So that was the thing. Now let's talk about one more success story of Walmart, and then we talk about we can also, I mean, 7-Eleven and Walmart are very contrasting to each other. They are like Toyota and Ford only of the supermarkets. So we will talk about that. So now I'm taking the Walmart case. And then we take two failure stories also. So this is not a big video. This is a smaller video as compared to a 7-Eleven.
Well, it's about. Walmart brought in $476 billion for revenue in the year that ended January 31, 2014, topping ExxonMobil in the Fortune 500 for a second year. That's more than the combined annual revenues of Apple, Amazon, Coca-Cola, Macy's, and Walt Disney Co., assuming Walmart stores operated 24 hours a day year-round. That would be $54.3 million in revenue per hour. Its net profit, after paying preferred dividends, was around $16 billion last year. 4 of the 10 richest Americans are Walton family members. They're worth more than $30 billion each. Well, you think that's enough, folks? That's ideally not. Globally, the retailer says it employs 2.2 million people. That's more than America's active military personnel, 1.43 million, and close to the size of the Chinese army, 2.29 million. There are around 4,233 Walmart stores in the US. Walmart says it drew almost 140 million shoppers a week to its US stores last year. That's equivalent to about 44% of the American population. Walmart's stores cover 1.1 billion square feet, which exceeds the size of Manhattan. In the frightening scenario where Manhattan is blanketed in Walmart-owned stores. Now let's look into Walmart. Walmart Stores, Incorporated, branded as Walmart, is an American multinational retail corporation that runs chains of large discount department stores and warehouse stores. The company was founded by Sam.
So they are in larger size, while 7-Eleven are smaller in size, and they are located close to customers. Walmarts are located far away from customers, but they are larger in size, and hence they can keep more inventory. And because they can keep more inventory, they can have more economies of scale, and more people are attracted there.
Walton in 1962 and incorporated on October 31, 1969. It has over 11,000 stores in 27 countries. under a total 55 different names. The company operates under the Walmart name in the US and Puerto Rico. It operates in Mexico as Walmart de Mexico y Centro America, in the United Kingdom as Asda, in Japan as CU, and in India as Best Price. Walmart's success ratios lies on its large scale of operations. Due to such large scale of operations, the corporate can exercise strong buyer power on suppliers to reduce the prices. It can also achieve higher economies of scale. Further, it results in lower prices that are passed to ultimate consumers. Walmart efficiency can also be measured with integrated information system, which restores.
So this is an important aspect of supply chain, which is integrated information system. What is the meaning of integrated? Anyone? Anyone? What is the meaning of What is the meaning of word integrated? Yes.
Like basically something that's joined and is a part of something bigger.
So integrated information system. So information system which integrates what? It integrates all the players in Walmart supply chain. So who will be the suppliers to Walmart? Like we have Procter and Gamble, Unilever. So these companies would be suppliers to Walmart. Okay, what do we call these kind of products? Shampoo, oil, soaps, toothpaste. What do we call these kind of products? They are consumer goods, and they are basically daily use products. So they are fast moving consumer goods. We say FMCGs. So mostly FMCGs are suppliers to Walmart, and so many 11,000 something Walmart stores are there. And how much inventory to keep? If you take inventory of a product which is not selling, then you will be in loss. Getting it? So, and then you have further, of course, these are Walmart. So you have supplier, and then you have Walmart, and then you have consumers walking in. Okay. So only three players are there. There are no distributor or retailer. Walmart itself is like a distributor. Okay, so here there is no manufacturer as such in the focal companies Walmart. Focal is the one of whose supply chain we are talking about. So they are talking about integrated information system which restores. So let's see, what does it restore?
Stores the information of tracking orders, inventory levels, sales and other related information in real time. All this information can be instantly accessed, analyzed and decisions made at each store. Effective management of supply chain and logistics is one of the most important factors for Walmart's success. Walmart.
So the whole success actually is attributed to the better functioning of its supply chain.
Walmart has a wide range of products compares to any other retailer, which ultimately attracts more customer to Walmart stores. Cost leadership strategy put Walmart way beyond. It sells products at much lower prices than.
So cost leader strategy simply means that for whatever product they are selling, they would like to sell that product at the lowest possible cost than its competitors.
Competitors do. But with all goodness, there's a downturn for Walmart too. Walmart faces labor-related lawsuits every year.
So Walmart Walmart also sells its own apparel merchandise, apparels, where you get very cheap t-shirts. I think like 100 rupee. If you've been to DMart, you would see that very cheap clothes are there, and they are of pretty decent quality. So same thing Walmart does. So they have a huge production units in outsourced units in Bangladesh. They get a lot of most of their clothes from Bangladesh. They get their most of the apparel line. So Bangladesh, and they are doing it. They are working in very low wages. I'll show a video to you later which reveals this side of the Walmart. But now we are only talking about success.
A year, which costs millions of dollars for the company. It is criticized for poor work conditions, low wages, unpaid overtime work, and female discrimination. In addition to litigation costs, corporate's reputation has been damaged and fewer skilled workers are willing to work for it. The business suffers from high employee turnover that increases firms' costs, as it has to train new employees more often. The main reason for high employee turnover is low-skilled, poorly paid jobs. But after all, being number
Employee turnover simply means that how many employees in a year are leaving your company. Of course, you'll be hiring same amount, but high employee turnover indicates more dissatisfaction. And of course, the skill required. What is this? I mean, not too much skill is required when you're selling, when you are a salesman in the supermarket. So, and the jobs are poor. I mean, they are poorly paid. I mean, it's in a capitalistic country, so what can you expect? Anyway,
number one means that you are the target of competition, locally and globally. Being a global retailer means that you are exposed to political problems in the countries that you operate in. Being a retail giant means getting ready to face criticism from numerous groups and individuals. Well,
so
looking
in when it was trying to invest, come in a big way in India, it had lot of. How many of you actually read about it in the newspapers? Let me see your hands. If you read about local retailers doing processions against entry of Walmart in India, how many of you remember? Have you seen any news article? Anushka has seen. Good. So let me see. Only Anushka has seen that. You people don't read newspapers, do you? Anyway, so good, Anushka. So there has been a lot of processions regarding the entry of Walmart in India. So even Amazon still faces a lot of.
So even Flipkart, when Flipkart started, it's like beyond books when it went and it got a good support online. Even
Yeah,
then, there were processions and they even ordered, like, they accused them of FBI frauds and everything. So
yeah,
there were
right.
raids.
So I mean, Flipkart, although is an online business, and these people still face uh, lot of resistance from the local retailers, and obviously so. But and that's why you see in Amazon they do some kind of days for small retailers and all to please that part of the population. You've seen that most often, or how many of you seen that small retailers and then the boxes Carvi has seen and the boxes that you see print of the small retailers and some people which are there. So Amazon boxes you see print of uh, faces are printed on that. So that's basically an
They
initiative.
have, yeah,
Yeah,
they have a separate tab like where they sell specifically products of, local and small
yeah.
industries.
So this is to please the community, so that to get a better image of the organization. So in supply chain, when you are a global player, you have to play according to the rules of the particular country. You can't have the same policy or same strategy throughout the world. Although the core strategy for Walmart will remain that as a low price. Okay, everyday low pricing. There's another strategy, we'll talk about that later. So that core strategy remains the same, but then how do you play along in a particular country? That changes, that story changes from place to place. So these are some success stories of we've talked about success of Walmart, we talked about success of 7-Eleven, and of course Big Bazaar also. In Indian conditions we have seen that. uh, Let me show you Big Bazaar quickly. That's not a big video. So before we finish the class, let's take an Indian case also. So just, just a second. So I'm sharing another video. It is about Big Bazaar. Although erstwhile, you can say name is still there, but the policies may change. I know I'm playing in the VLC player, and how would this come up? Let's see that. Is it audible?
No, sir.
Not audible. Not audible. Okay. Source. Yeah, now it is. Is it audible now?
No, sir. Sir, actually, you'll probably have to like right click on the video and open with Google Chrome. Then you'll be able to share the tab, and then it might be audible.
Okay, so yeah, now it will come.
For Kishore Biyani, who already rules the world of front-end retail.
It must be audible now, right?
Yes, sir.
Tanvi Shukla and Vidhi Gorewala report on how Biyani is now looking to lord it over the supply chain part of the business as well. Take a look.
This distribution center, sprawled across 125,000 square feet on the outskirts of Mumbai, caters to 50 Big Bazaar and
So here, a few things which you would be observing in this video is that the size of the warehouse that they have, where they are located. This is a pretty old video, and what investment they are doing to bolster their supply chain. So these are some basic takeaways which are there in this video.
Food Bazaar outlets. That's 3 crore rupees of merchandise turnaround per day, and at a cost of 30 crore rupees, boasts full automation. And it's just the
So full automation they are talking about, okay?
first step in creating a strong national FMCG distribution network.
This is one DC where there are 6 software applications working together, including a ERP.
So this guy is telling that this is one DC. DC means distribution center. So you can see here at the backside, there are 3 to 4 stories of storage units. In size of,
including a warehouse management system, a put-to-light sortation system, a pick and pack system, a automatic print and apply system, a automatic packaging system, an automatic online conveyor-based weight check system. This DC enables these retail stores to ensure 100%, close to 100%.
So this is a distribution center for the retail stores which we see around our city. Okay.
Fill rates, secure, guaranteed, on time, in full, floor ready merchandise.
The fascinating bit is the process inside the center. Each box entering the warehouse is barcoded and put on a conveyor belt. The barcode dictates whether the box is scheduled for storage, for direct delivery, or for piecemeal distribution.
So is direct delivery or piecemeal distribution? So direct delivery means that it's going directly to a certain store, or it is going to be distributed in different stores. Okay, a box is there. Now this box is directly going to go to a Big Bazaar store, or in Jaipur, let's say 4 Big Bazaar stores are there. So this box will be opened up again at one of the places, and then it will be distributed among four Big Bazaar stores. So that's what it means.
For this third option, an online order tracking system is used to ensure the products in the box go to the store which placed the order. The products are then repackaged and transferred to one of these 1,600 GPS tracked trucks for delivery.
So they have their own fleet. And how many? 1,600 Jeep, and that was a long back. 1,600 GPS trucks, GPS enabled trucks. So GPS enabled means that you'll be able to track where the truck is right now, and then how much inventory is left, and it can help you in real-time monitoring of the inventory.
So what's special about this system? Deliveries can be made 2 to 3 times a day to the same store instead of the once or twice a week delivery mechanism offered by a regular distribution system.
The company wants to offer services to not just its own retail stores, but also take business to a certain scale and size where it is able to offer services to other modern trade stores. So, for example, 9 more of these kind of food and FMCG distribution centers will be opened in the next 12 to 15 months, calling for an investment of about 100 crore rupees in just infrastructure and information technology.
Future Group will also open separate centers to exclusively cater to companies outside the group.
Bangalore DC will go live towards the end of this year. Hyderabad DC.
So they are not only selling to their own customers, but rather they are catering to others as well.
Again, of similar sizes, 400,000 square feet, will go live by August. All those will be for the non-Future Group external businesses that we will be catering to across categories, across FMCG, food, apparels, general merchandise, furniture, electronics, as well as some part of automobiles and some part of engineering.
In all, this means an addition of at least 6 million square feet of storage space. Add infrastructure and technology requirements and you're looking at an annual investment of 150 crore rupees for the next 2 to 3 years. In Mumbai with Tanvi Shukla, with
Okay, so here we have seen how Big Bazaar had invested in technology, in warehousing space, and how big companies think about expansion. You continuously have to work on expansion of your supply chains and make them better, make them more streamlined. So now in the next class, we will talk about some failures also. Okay, so that's it for today. Any doubts?
No, sir.
Okay then.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.